To start off, we're going to read a verse. We've got to start, we've got to launch this thing with a good verse. You know the verse. I'm sure you know it well. But listen to what the Bible says. Joshua 24, verse 15. And if it seems evil to you to serve the Lord, choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you now dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Let's say it together. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That's it. That's where we're going to start. We're going to look at that and say, that's what we want to do, is we want to get our families right, serving the Lord. It's never too late to start. So we talk about radical family. So just a disclaimer. Doing this talk in no way makes my family perfect. Oh, hold on. What's going on there? Are you jumping my slides? Don't touch the buttons at the back. My family is a perfect one, nor does it mean that we get it right or have got it right all the time. As you'll see, it's not about being a perfect family, but a radical one. You just have to ask my family. You'll see that I'm not perfect. That's why I don't bring them with me, because, you guys will talk to them afterwards, and then, it'll be... Another disclaimer is that there's a lot of information. I've been accused a lot of times when I do talks that I give a lot of information. But here's the thing. It may feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, but I always aim to equip, not just to entertain. And I call it a deep dive with optional life jacket. So there'll be a lot of information, but the talk will be on YouTube afterwards. So if you do fall asleep at some stage, you can go back and watch it later. In today's fast-paced world, over 60% of families report feeling overwhelmed. But what if thriving was possible? Now think about this. SADAG, South African Depression and Anxiety Group, says, according to their research, 23 people commit suicide a day in South Africa. 23 people. They receive between 300 to 400 calls, or at least there are 300 to 400 serious attempts a day. 80% of those are males. They found that during COVID, before COVID, they would get about 400 or so calls a day about people wanting to attempt suicide or something like that. During COVID, that went up to 1,600 calls a day. Sad. What do you think makes a family healthy and strong in today's world? Why is it so important to place emphasis on the family? Because the family is and always will be the basic building block of society. When a national magazine ran an article on the family, it wasn't entitled Strengthening the Family, or Examining the Family, or even Depending on the Family. It was Saving the Family. The family is fast becoming an extinct species. Here's a general profile taken from a few sources in South Africa. 54% of men aged 15 to 49 are fathers, but nearly 50% don't have contact with their children. Look at that. Men aged 15. Can you imagine? Think about yourself at 15, guys. Sheesh. Even at 22, I couldn't even manage myself, never mind a child. Hey, imagine a 15-year-old being a father, or a 15-year-old being a mother. It is estimated that as much as 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. Children under the age of 15 with absent fathers went from 45% to 52% between 1996 and 2009. About 1/5, that's 21% of all children in South Africa did not live with their parents. Look at that. 42% live with their mother. Then live with neither parents, 21%, and live with both parents, 32%. 38% of all marriages fail. That's conservative. 38% of marriages. I see about 24 people a week. If I see children, it goes up to about 30 people a week. So that's 60 people a month of those 60 people, you're probably looking at least 50 of them are marriages, Christian marriages, not secular marriages. I see about 2 or 3 couples who are non-Christians. But most of the people that I see in my counseling practice are Christians. I see as young as a 3-year-old child. Can you think about, just think about that. Where in your mind did you think that a 3-year-old would need therapy or come for play therapy? The first book I wrote, called Radical Dads, I wrote it because I was working at College Street Primary School and I was working at George Randall Primary School at the time doing play therapy when Brian Bennett was there. I had the privilege of working at that school. It was a wonderful experience. But during that time, at those schools and as well as in my private practice, the interesting thing was that everybody that I was seeing, and I was even seeing a granny of about 75. And now I'm talking a long time ago. This is like ages ago. I started at College Street in 2001, so it was around about that time. But all of the people that I'm seeing, every single one of them had issues with their fathers. And so that kind of led me to write a book called Radical Dads. 4 out of 10 babies born in this decade will spend part of their childhood in a single-parent home. 15% of births today are illegitimate, and 50% are out of wedlock. Babies are born to teenagers. Half of all children will witness the breakup of a parent's marriage. Of these, close to half will also see the breakup of a parent's second marriage. Do you know that a second marriage has a 75% chance of failure, not success? Now, I know that this sounds doom and gloom, and I'm sorry that I start off like this, but I want you to understand the severity of what we do in our families and how our families impact society. Because how the family goes, society goes. So think about it like this then, on a more positive note. You impact one person. One person can impact a family. One family can impact a community. One community can impact a city. One city can impact a nation. You have got the power to impact one person. Every day in your life, you have got the capacity to impact 1 or 2 people, depending on how big your family is. You've got the capacity to impact them on a daily basis. 40% of children growing up in South Africa today are being raised without their fathers, and 70% of long-term prison inmates grew up in broken homes. People who come from broken homes are almost twice as likely to attempt suicide as those who do not come from broken homes. Family gets saved. So 3.5, you can't really see can you see it? Oh, there we go. 3.5% of families get saved if the children get saved first. My wife, when she was about 13 years of age, they were going to St. Albans Church, and they were going to the youth, and her father and her mother was a Baptist, but she wasn't really going to church that much, and her father wasn't saved at that stage. And they were at youth, and the youth pastor prayed for them, and they fell under the power and started speaking in tongues, and so they didn't come out in time. So my father-in-law, he was quite a serious man, and he was quite upset that his children weren't out. So he got out the car, went inside, and there he sees his 2 daughters, they are identical twins, lying on the floor, speaking this foreign language. And he's like, what is going on here? So he tackled the youth leader and stuff and sorted them out. And then the next day he came to the church and tackled the minister. And the minister says to him, well, look, I understand your concern. But I tell you what, why don't you come to church and have a look? And he did, and he got saved. Through his kids, getting baptized in the Holy Spirit. And he eventually became a self-supporting priest for the St. Albans. Through the children. So 3.5%. 17% of families get saved if the wife gets saved first. Now look at this. 93% of families get saved if the husband gets saved first. Now, I know I'm talking about the men, because I work a lot with men. And from my personal experience, I'm not saying this is for everybody, but it's my personal experience, some of the hardest people to work with are the women. No, the men. As you're going there, you've got a fright, eh? Yeah. The men are the hardest. I don't know if you ever listened to Wild Coast FM when it was still on the radio. Anybody listen to Wild Coast FM? I used to be on the radio at Wild Coast FM, sort of. Not really. I remember my friend, he was taking his daughter to school, and she was in primary school at that stage. And he said, "Oh, that's Uncle Steve." She said, "No, it's not." So my friend said, "No, it's Uncle Steve on the radio." She said, "No, it's not Uncle Steve." He said, "No, I'm serious, it's Uncle Steve." She said, "Dad, stop fooling around. It's not Uncle Steve." So I said, "Well, who is he?" He said, "It's Angus Buchan." So I'm glad I sound like Angus Buchan. I don't know why I told you that story. But anyway, there was a point in it. Because as the family goes, so the church goes. So look at that. Healthy homes, healthy churches, healthy communities. Hey? To have a strong church, you need strong families. To have strong families, you need strong marriages. To have strong marriages, you need strong men. Now that's the thing. In today's society, we don't have strong men, unfortunately. So I'm not talking about you guys, okay? I'm talking about outside there. But you look at historically what happens. Strong men produce easy times. Easy times produce weak men. Weak men produce hard times. Hard times produce strong men. And so the cycle goes. Unfortunately, we are starting to enter into the time of weak men, and we're going to go through difficult times. Look at all the woke stuff that the people don't even know who they are, what they are, where they are. I remember talking to a young child, 13 years of age. The mother came to me and said, "Look, my daughter is starting to say that she's a boy and all that because she's a Christian." So I said, "Well, she knew me and stuff." Said, "Well, come and talk to me." So they did, and she said, "I know what you're going to say." So I said, "What? What am I going to say?" She's going to tell me that it's wrong from the Bible. I said, "No, I'm not going to say that. I won't tell you anything from the Bible. I'll just tell you one thing. I'm only going to tell you one thing, and then we can talk about whatever you want to." So I said to you, if someone took a part of your DNA and they didn't know whether it came from a boy or girl or male or female, if they took your DNA and they tested that DNA would say that you are a girl. It doesn't matter what you do. You can chop stuff off, you can put stuff on. Your DNA will always tell you that you are a boy or a girl. Doesn't matter what you do. She said, "Really?" I said, "Yes. Check it. Google it or whatever you want to do." And she said, "Okay." So I said, "Okay, what do you want to talk?" We talked about stuff. 2 weeks later, the mother phoned me and said, "I don't know what you said, but my daughter's completely changed." Because you see, the reality is that the devil wants to destroy our kids, because if you're going to destroy the kids, you're going to destroy the future. Because if you've got broken children, you're going to have broken families. You're going to have broken households. You're going to have broken nation. We need to save the thing. And sometimes it starts with us as men, taking up our roles as fathers. Now, I now talk a lot about the men because I work a lot with men, more men than women. And that was the story I was going to tell. A guy came to, I was seeing his wife for marriage counseling, and he came down, so he wanted to also see me, so he came down before his wife. He came early that day, and I could see that he was aggressive. He was completely anti this, and he sat down, he said, "Oh, so you're talking to my wife?" I said, "Yeah, I am." And as we're talking, I started to see his mind start to tick. And he said to me, "Are you on the radio?" So I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Are you Dr. Steve?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Are you on the couch?" Because the program was called On the Couch with Dr. Steve. He said, "Are you Dr. Steve, on the couch with Dr. Steve?" And now he's sitting forward in his chair. And I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "I can't believe it. I'm on the couch with Dr. Steve." When his wife came down, he jumped up. He said, "This is Dr. Steve. It's on the couch with Dr. Steve." From that time onwards, that guy, he was probably one of the best clients I've ever had. Just one little thing like that turned it around. I didn't even know that, you have, now, why I'm telling you this is that just one little impact that you have, you don't realize that the way that you come across, the way you speak, the way you act, the way you respond, the way you talk, all has an impact on somebody. I've gone to YouTube just to watch a music video, and 5 hours later, there I'm watching a tutorial on how to talk to a giraffe. That's true, eh? Have you ever done that? Now scrolling, it's even worse now with TikTok scrolling and Instagram. You spend hours and you've done nothing. Ephesians 5 and 6 provides some very practical advice about successful family relationships. Wives, husbands, children, parents. Wives, submit to your husband's leadership. Ephesians 5:22-24. Now, interesting thing there. Often you'll hear men. It's so interesting, eh? Men will say, my wife doesn't submit to me. I said to him, okay, well, let me just ask you one question before we carry on with this talk. Who was that written to? No, it was written to the wives. I said, yes, it was written to the wives. It wasn't written to you. It wasn't written to you to tell your wife that she's to submit. Why don't you read what it says you have to do? And why don't you, instead of trying to get your wife to submit to you, why don't you do what God's instructed you to do? Because here's the thing. If your wife doesn't submit to you, it's no longer an issue between you and her. It's an issue between her and God. If you don't love your wife like Christ loves the church, it's no longer an issue between you and God. You and your wife. It's an issue between you and God because you're walking in disobedience. So my friend, focus on what the Bible tells you to do as a husband before you criticize and point out what your wife is not doing. Same with you wives. Stop pointing out what your husband's not doing and start doing what the Bible says you should be doing. Respect your husband. Love your wife as yourself. The Bible says that, love your wife as yourself. Maybe. But you first love your wife as Christ loves the church. Now think about that. That is a sacrificial love. It's a greater thing than submitting. I can tell you now, guys, if we as husbands had to focus on loving our wives like Christ loved the church, we wouldn't have any problems with our wives submitting to us, because it would be impossible for our wife, unless she's in rebellion, to submit to a man who's wholly, completely submitted to Jesus. Impossible. Consider her needs first. Obey the instruction. Children. Now remember, if you're an adult and you're out the home, you're no longer a child. You're no longer under your parents' control. Okay, so it's talking about children who are still in the home. Honor your parents. As an adult, you don't have to obey your parents. And honoring your parents as an adult doesn't mean that you have to do whatever they say. It also doesn't mean that you have to go to lunch with them every Sunday if you don't want to. But we won't talk about that. Parents, do not deliberately irritate or antagonize your children. My daughter said to me, my daughter is 25, my oldest daughter. So she said to me that, Dad, I was reading an interesting verse in the Bible. And I started to laugh. I said, oh, what was it? She says, Ephesians chapter 5. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. I said, why are you telling me that? It was uncalled for. Train and discipline your children in God's way. I'll talk to you about what the Lord showed me about that. Invest in children today, not prepare men tomorrow. A godly husband and father leaves the home to establish his own. So here's the thing. What people don't seem to understand. I've realized this. When you get married, sometimes people say to you, we want to welcome you into our family. That's incorrect. You don't welcome the person into your family. They leave your family and start their own family. So you, as mom and dad, no longer can tell them what they must do. You cannot tell them that they have to come and have lunch, because we've always done it. If they don't want to come and have lunch with you on a Sunday, they don't have to. Now, it's nice if they do, and it's great if they can. Even now, I know this is going to ruffle some feathers, they don't have to come for Christmas. They can stay and do their own Christmas if they want to. And I know some of you are going to be upset with me. You're probably going to write a comment on the YouTube channel. I don't like what he said. That's okay. Think about it. You cannot control or manipulate your children. I gave birth to you. I carried you for 9 months, and this is how you treat me. I'm your mother. I'm your father. Well, she said, I'm your mother. The father says, she's your mother. Listen to her. Leave your home, establish your own. The two shall become one. The husband shall leave his father and cleave. Now, here's the thing. When I got married, my wife kept on going to her dad for advice and stuff like that. And I got upset by that. And I said to her, I spoke to her about it one day, and she said to me, I hear what you're saying. If you have to meet my wife, she's an amazing person. And people think I'm joking or I'm exaggerating when I say this, that my wife is never in a bad mood. She never gets upset or angry or shouts or screams. She's never grumpy. The only time she's ever got angry is when I've done something. And I'll tell you something now, 99.9% of the issues in our marriage and arguments have been because of me. Stuff I've done, stuff I've said. I'm telling you now. And when I spoke to her about that, she said to me, but love, you haven't given me the opportunity to cleave to you. Because this is what I would do. In the first year of our marriage, we worked out at a campsite. I would come up from the campsite. She hadn't seen me the whole day. I'd come up from the campsite, take my food, and I'd go to the study and study. Yeah, I know, it was bad. I'm not like that anymore. But that's what I would do. I wouldn't give her a chance to cleave to me. So now whose fault is that? Is that her fault? No, it's my fault. Makes a lifelong commitment to his wife. 1 Corinthians. There's the verses there you can read. Provides for material needs of his family. Meets his wife's sexual needs. That's a tough one for men sometimes because we're selfish when it comes to that. We think about ourselves. And pornography's got a big play in that. Pornography teaches men that their needs the most important. And I'll tell you something now. If you read most of the material that you read on sex and stuff in the books, even the Christian books, it's incorrect. Because it says that the number one need for a woman is to be emotionally connected. The number one need for a man is to be sexually satisfied. I think that that's nonsense. Because if you look at sexual addiction material, it'll tell you that sex addicts say that sex is their most important need. If you're focusing just on that, if that's all that you think marriage is about, if that's all you think that relationship is about, you're going to struggle in your marriage. He meets his wife's emotional needs. Now, here's the thing. Oh, that was a good shot, eh? They say this. The relationships in marriage that are the most fulfilled are the relationships of the marriages where the man has high emotional intelligence. The man has high emotional intelligence. Now, here's the problem. Most men don't have high emotional intelligence. We don't. We're not born with that. We have to learn that. Women are naturally like that. So you look at women when they're talking in a group. You take thank you so much, eh? Let's check if it's working. Did you put the batteries in correctly? Oh, you did. Well done. So you look at it when women get together and they're talking in a group. Even if there's women that they don't know, if they get up to go to the toilet, the other women will go with them. No, men don't do that. And women will walk, they'll walk and they'll talk and they'll talk and they'll talk, and they'll go into the toilet and they'll talk and they'll talk and they'll talk and they'll come out and they'll talk. They're best buddies. Men don't do that. Never ever have I ever stood up in a group of men and said, I'm going to the toilet. Anybody want to come with? But here's what happens when you go with a man. If you're walking, men will talk, they'll talk, but the minute you step over the threshold in the toilet, you stop talking. There's nothing to talk about. You've got one reason to be in that place and one reason only. And I remember going into the toilet one time with my friend, and as I walked, there was a guy drying his hair, and I said, hey, how's it? Yes, the guy, he ran so fast. Didn't want to have a conversation with me. Women and men are totally different. And so we need to work hard at learning to respond. Now, a lot of people say to me, yeah, but, when I'm doing marriage counseling, the man will say, I'm not a big talker. I said, really, eh? I said, do you like to hunt? Yes. Okay, so tell me about the gun that you... Man, the guy can sit and talk to you for an hour about the guns and the bullets and the things and the shots and the this and the that and the fishing and the surfing. Don't tell me that men can't talk. Men can talk. They'll talk a handicap of a donkey of something that they like. It just means that they've never learned to communicate on a deeper level because they think, as we've been taught over time, that talking about emotions is for women. If you can learn, guys, if you can learn to relate to your lady on an intimate, close level where you can actually sit and you can listen to her without distraction, your whole life will change. Now, one guy said to me, no, but if I give my wife an opportunity to talk, she'll just keep on talking. I said, yes, that's what you think, but the reason why she does that is because you haven't created a safe space for her to talk. If you create a safe space for your wife to talk about her feelings and emotions, what's going on, without trying to solve them, and you actually listen and you say, what happened then? What did you do? And you listen to them and you actually reflect back. Your wife will need to talk, have that need to be met less and less because you've created a safe space. There will come a time where you will say, would you like to talk about something? Your wife will say, no, I'm okay, thank you. Because she feels safe. Do you know that they did research? This is true, eh? You're going to think I'm making it up, but it's true. True research. They put markers on the lady, computer things to assess, okay, on the brain. So then they look and they say, when a woman talks, both brains, you got right hemisphere, left hemisphere. Right is for feelings and emotions, left is for logic. When a woman talks, both brain hemispheres light up. The interesting thing is that when the woman stopped talking, the brain stayed lit. The men, when they spoke, only one brain hemisphere lit up, depending on where they were talking. If they were talking about emotions, it was right. If they were talking about logic, it was left. The interesting thing was that when the man stopped talking, the brain went blank. So that's why, ladies, when you ask your husband or you ask your man, what are you thinking? And he says nothing. He's thinking about nothing. Always thinking about some random thing that's not related. You think he's probably thinking about other girls. No, he's not, man. I wonder how many pieces of horse I can get out of a kudu. And he's working it out in his mind. You think he's thinking about some deep stuff. Anyway, sidetrack. Meets his wife's emotional needs. Okay. What's going on here? Oh, there we go. Treats his wife with gentleness and respect. I work with a lot of acoustics. You know what acoustic is? It's a word, and every letter of that word is another word, so I use the acoustic great. Gentle, respectful, encourage, attune, touch. So when I do marriage counseling, I talk to people about how to communicate in a healthy way. So think about this. If you decide from this point on, every time we talk to each other and every time we respond to each other, it's always going to be gentle and respectful. Gentle and respectful. That's where we start. That's the baseline. Disciplines his children lovingly. A godly wife submits to her husband's leadership, makes a lifelong commitment, meets her husband's sexual needs, meets her husband's need for affirmation and support, develops, let me just say something about that, meets her needs for affirmation and support. Just a while back now, just recently, I was going through quite a tough time. I had some heavy cases, and it was weighing on me, and I was feeling quite sad because of things that I had to deal with. And so when that happens, I often just withdraw and pull away, and I become quiet. And one of my daughters noticed, "Dad, are you tired?" So I said, "Yes, I am." But I felt very alone at that moment because Mandy never responded to my wife. Mandy never responded to anything. So we went out for breakfast one day, and I brought this up. And I said to her, when I'm going through that, I feel very alone. And all I need is for you to ask me how I'm doing or to give me a hug. And this is what she said. She said, "I hear you. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional because it makes me sad. I hear you. But you must remember that over the years, you have taught me not to do that. Every time I've tried to reach out to you in the past, you've told me, leave me alone. And that's what I've done. I've left you alone. I said to her, absolutely. And I'm sorry that I did that. But now that I feel I've healed in a lot of areas, I now realize that I need that. I don't need to be left alone. I need you to connect with me. And she said, I can do that. I said, I won't push you away. I will not tell you to leave me alone. If you ask me, am I okay? I'll tell you, yes or no. I don't need to talk about it because I can't talk about what's going on. But that's what happens. You've got to create that space for each other to do that. I can't blame Mandy for not meeting that need when I told her and taught her over the years not to talk to me. So when I'm like that, what does she do? She does what I told her. Leave me alone. And when she leaves me alone, I get upset. Doesn't make sense, eh? Develops inward charm and beauty, not just outward charm and beauty, and disciplines her children lovingly. Quick questions for dads. Do you want your son to have a good relationship with God? To be intellectually formidable? To be physically strong? To be emotionally mature? And to be professionally competent? Do you? Yes, of course. Raise your hand if you want these things for your son. Are you those things as a dad? If you want those things for your son, and you can talk about the same thing for the woman, work out something for the woman there. You can have that for you want a daughter. I want a daughter who's intellectually formidable, to be emotionally mature, to be professionally competent. I want that for my daughters too. I need to help them create that. So why it matters, relationship, building strong connections. According to a Harvard study of adult development, can you see that? Strong relationships are the single best predictor of long-term happiness. Prioritize time together, shared meals, regular check-ins and family traditions, keep bonds strong. Praying together, family devotions. So what we did we've done as a family, my daughters are 25 and 22, and we created a time where at the table, whenever we were together as a family, having a meal or just having family time together, we would have no phones or no screens or no books or anything like that. We'd play cards. I developed a thing called daddy-daughter cards when they were 6 and 9 to help me develop a strong relationship with my girls, because I started to become like my dad, who was what I call a recluse dad. A recluse dad is physically present but emotionally absent. And so I was starting to become like that. So I developed these cards called daddy-daughter cards, which were discussion starters, and we'd sit on the bed, just the three of us. My wife, Mandy, would leave us, and Lauren and Allison and myself would sit on the bed, and we'd do these discussion starters. And that developed a strong relationship. You know, and I know that people say I'm in J-Ray, but we never had any problems with our children growing up. No discipline issues, no slamming doors, no shouting, no screaming, even in the teenage years. No rebellion, no attitude. Sure, you had moods and stuff like that. That's normal. Everybody goes through that. But we had nothing. Why? Because I made an intentional thing to build a relationship with them, so that now they talk to us about anything. You know, even now, today, 25 and 22 years of age, they still want to do those cards. They don't call them daddy-daughter cards anymore, but they call them discussion things. And we'll sit and we'll do them at the table. And I remember once my brother came to visit us, and he was single at the moment, at that time, because he'd got divorced, and he came to visit. And my youngest daughter, Allison, was 8. And we're sitting at the table, and he was at the top there. And the conversation had come to a standstill, and he looked at his phone. And I could see my daughters, both of them stopped, and they looked at me like this, because I was at the other end. And I didn't even look up. I just carried on eating, and I said, tell Uncle Trevor we do not use the phone at the table. And my brother looked, oh, sorry, he put it away. And my daughter smiled. Now, here's the thing about that. You might think it's an insignificant thing, but here's the thing. One of the biggest things that you have to work out with a family, if you want your family to grow in any area, your relationship with your marriage, relationship with your children, there has to be consistency. Inconsistency brings insecurity, and insecurity, negative behavior. So sometimes your child's negative behavior is not because they're being naughty, it's because you have been inconsistent. And so that inconsistency creates problems. Trust and respect create an environment, where each person feels valued and safe to be themselves. Emotional support. Show up in both joyful and difficult moments. Schedule a family night once a week. No screens, just connection. The daddy-daughter cards I told you about. If you want to get those cards, you can just email me. My email address will be at the end if you want to do all this information there that you can take. You're welcome to email me, and I will email you those daddy-daughter cards free of charge. I've also got marriage connecting cards as well. So if you want to, in fact, if you wanted to, you can go on my website, which will be at the end, and all of that stuff's on there for free. So 3 meals. Now look at this, eh? The research shows that 3 meals a week, just 3 meals a week as a family, gives your child a 75% less chance of being involved with drugs and alcohol. 20 minutes of carpet time a day with your child gives them a 75% less chance of being involved with peer pressure. 20 minutes. 3 meals a week. You can change the whole dynamic of the family. Attitude, optimism in the face of challenges. Why it matters. Research shows that the optimism is linked to better problem solving, lower stress levels, and improved overall health. All behavior is learned behavior. So remember that. All behavior is learned behavior. Your child learns that behavior from somewhere. Now think about this, okay? Your toddler comes to you and they say, I want a cookie. You say, no, it's 5 minutes to supper. What do? They start to whine. You say, just 5 minutes to supper, just wait. They start to throw a tantrum. They're on the ground screaming like they, having a petit mal fit. Eh? And what do? You give them a biscuit. What's going to happen the next time they come? I want a biscuit. They're already moaning because they know what you've taught them. If they whine long enough, they're going to get what they want. You've taught them. Now, you think that that's going to stay there. As they get older and a teenager, what they're going to do? To get what they want, they're going to throw tantrums. As a teenager, they'll throw a tantrum. And what you're going to do is you're just going to give them what they want. And so they grow up as adults. And what do? They have an entitlement attitude. They just expect everything to be given to them. And they get upset when the boss tells them, if you keep on coming to work late, you're going to lose your job. They get upset because they're entitled. They think they should get it anyway, even if they do minimal work. Resilience, the ability to bounce back from stress, setbacks, and societal pressures without losing hope. A study showed that resilient children typically have at least one stable, committed relationship with a supportive adult. Gratitude, a daily habit of recognizing and appreciating the good no matter how small. Studies show that gratitude boosts happiness, strengthens relationships, and reduces depression. Do you know that your brain is wired that it cannot manage complaining and moaning and negativity and gratitude at the same time? You see that the people who moan and complain about everything, they're not grateful about anything. Discipline, establish healthy boundaries. Why it matters. Shows that consistent boundaries help children develop self-control, security, and respect. Boundaries. Everyone understands what expected. Clear rules. Consistency, follow through builds trust. Consistency, inconsistency brings insecurity. Insecurity, negative behavior. Choose this. Okay, so this is what happened. My children were 6 and 9. My daughters were 6 and 9. And when I grew up in a home where hitting was okay, in the 60s and 70s. My mother used to hit me 3 ways, hard, fast, and continuously. No, she didn't. She'd go, don't talk back. You say, as one guy said, it sounded like your mother abused you. No, she just reset me. Yeah? Just a reset button on the side of the head. Eh? No, my mom never hit me on the head. Just everywhere else. Eh? So I grew up like that. So my natural instinct was to hit. Okay? So that's how I would discipline. I would shout, I would scream, I would hit, raise my voice. Here's the problem with raising your voice. This is what you do. You say, pack your bag. Nothing happens. Pack your bag. Nothing. Pack your bags. And everybody's scrambling around. So why do I always have to shout? Well, the reason why you have to shout is you've trained them to listen to your voice, not your words. So they only react here. And sometimes your husband does too, eh? When you're shouting at the kids, your husband's like packing stuff away. So what I thought that, okay, I was going to give my daughters a hiding, and I realized that they were terrified. I used a wooden spoon, and I just hit them on the butt. But they were still small. They were terrified. So I said to my wife, I cannot give them a hiding. I felt terrible. So I thought, well, I can't go without disciplining them. So I did some research and studying and reading, and I came up with a theory. And this is what it was. You only speak once. You don't repeat yourself. Johnny, if you do that again, you're going to get a hiding. I'm telling you, do that one more time, eh? I'm serious. If you do that one more time, you're going to get a hiding. I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4, 2 and whatever comes after 3/4. No. You only talk once, and you use these words. If you choose to do that, you're choosing not to do this. So I went in, my girls were in the lounge watching TV. When we had TV, that was kind of the last time we had TV, when they were 8 and whatever, because our TV broke and they never repaired it. So we just never had TV. So we just watched DVDs and whatever. But they were watching a DVD and they were fighting, arguing. So I walked in and I said, girls, if you choose to fight, you're choosing not to watch TV. Quiet, eh? Like, okay, why is Dad not shouting? So I went out. It was quiet. They're watching. 5 minutes later, they started fighting again. So what did I do? I went in. I didn't repeat myself. I just said this. I see you have chosen not to watch TV. Okay? Because you got a choice. Watch TV, don't fight. Fight, don't watch TV. You chose to fight, therefore you chose not to watch TV. So I switched the TV off. They're like, oh, sorry, Dad, we're sorry. We won't do it again. We're sorry. I hear you saying, but you cannot watch TV. Oh, no, but Dad, come, oh, please, man, we won't fight. We promise we won't fight. I hear you saying, but you cannot watch TV. My oldest daughter, oh, that's unfair. So I turned around, I said to her, look at me. Does it look like I'm going to change my mind? No. You've asked, I've answered. If you ask me again, you cannot watch TV tomorrow either. Now go to your rooms. Okay, fine. Do you know that throughout even now, they are 25 and 22. If they get into it with each other, say, girls, if you're choosing, sorry, Dad, because there was a consequence straight away. Because this is what happens. When you punish a child, go to your room, you're going to get a hiding. What happens is that you take control of the punishment and the consequence. It disempowers the child, and you're teaching them nothing. But if you say, if you choose, remember God said it to Cain. Before he killed Abel, he said, why is your face so downcast? Don't you know that if you choose to do what is right, blessing will follow? But if you choose to do what is wrong, sin is crouching at the door, waiting to devour you, but you have to overcome it. The choice is yours. I taught my children from a very young age, you win or lose by the way you choose. You can choose to do whatever you want to, but you cannot choose the consequence that comes with a choice. There's a consequence to every choice you make. So choose right. So if you teach your children to make the choice, you can choose to do this or you can choose to do that. What you do is you empower them because they are now in control of the consequence of their choice. And you help them with that, and slowly but surely they'll start to make the right choices even when you are not there. So that's a good way to do it. Intentionally, why it matters. Families that plan together stay connected despite busy schedules. Try micro moments, 5-minute check-ins before bed or a quick shared breakfast before work. So what I would do when they were younger, they asked me to stop when they got into the teenagers because I think it made them embarrassed. And Mandy also asked me, but this is what I would do. I'd say to them, how am I doing as a dad? Is there something I should be doing that I'm not doing? And is there something that I'm not doing that I should be doing? And I said that to Mandy. How am I doing as a husband? Am I doing something I shouldn't? And should I be doing something I'm not? And he said, please stop examining our marriage. Our marriage is fine. Because, I deal with a lot of marriages. She said, every time you come up there, you want to now examine our marriage and think it's okay. Try and check if it's okay. I'm telling you now, it's okay. She said, what did I tell you when we got married? I don't know, tell me. She said, I said to you that I loved you. If anything changes, I'll let you know. So 28 years down the line, she hasn't let me know yet, so that's a good sign. Our family created tech rules: no phones during meals and all devices charged outside the bedrooms. You reap what you sow. So look at this, eh? If I plant a tomato, what's going to happen over time? I'm going to I plant a tomato seed. Over time, I'm going to reap a tomato, right? Okay. So now I could say, I command you to be a potato. In the name of Jesus, you're going to be a potato. I know it's going to be a potato. By faith, I believe it's a potato. I take it out. I say, hey, look at my potato. She says, Steve, you're crazy, man. It's a tomato. Why? Because you reap what you sow. Whatever you sow, you're going to reap. So here's the principle. You know the principle of the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing in the same way, expecting a different result? So I say it like this. If you keep on doing what you've always done, you'll keep on getting what you've always got. If you don't like what you're getting, change what you're doing. So that's what I did with the thing. Now, if you look at all of my material, every single time I wrote something was a crisis, I realized that my marriage was in crisis, so I wrote a book called Radical Marriages. And my parenting was in crisis, so I wrote a book called Radical Parenting. I was in crisis, so a book called Radical Men, and then Radical Freedom. It's all radical. Radical stands for relationships, attitude, discipline, being intentional, communication, action, love. Work that out. All of those, action, discipline, being intentional, communication, action, love, all relate to relationship. Your attitude affects relationship, discipline, intentionality, all relationship. It's all about relationship. Discipline without relationship breeds rebellion. So sometimes you have to have a connective conversation before you have a corrective conversation. And that goes with anything. Influence of technology. 73% of teens feel they spend too much time on screens. That's probably not in South Africa. Dinner table silence because everyone's scrolling. Perhaps do some devotions or prayers. The influence of technology. So they did a survey. The ages of 18 to 35, I think it is. 18 to 35 spends at least 54 hours on technology a week. How much time do you think people spend in Bible study? Maybe an hour on a Wednesday, an hour on a Sunday, and maybe 10 minutes a day. I just saw a book at Kumbukse, 3-minute devotions. I mean, who the heck has 3-minute devotions? Where do you think you can call? If you spend 3 minutes a day with your wife, do you think you're going to be happily married? Maybe you will be, but she'll be upset. She's happy, I'm just married. No. You can't cultivate relationship by 3 minutes. You've got to spend serious time with the Lord. But most people spend about 10 minutes. So take that, give it. Say, that's not nearly close to 54 hours. So what is influencing people? You listen to people talk. They'll talk about the influences, the things they watch on social media, and they scroll through Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, and you spend hours watching these influences, and it's absolute nonsense. But that's what feeds us. And they'll talk more about what the influencer says than what the Bible says. Why it matters, communication. Open communication reduces conflict and increases emotional security in children. Now, the interesting thing was that we gave our daughters opportunity to talk about anything so they can say anything. But I'll tell you something now. I said to my daughters, they're not disrespectful or anything, but they can talk about whatever they want to. But I said to them, there's some things that you say, you talk about, that if I said that to my mother, I would have woken up in bed in the hospital drinking food through a straw. Like if I said to my mother, I don't want to eat that. It would have been the last time I ever said anything like it. You never said. Now, my daughters will say, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. No. I grew up in a totally different era, and that's fine. That's okay. But we gave an open opportunity for them to talk about anything. So they talked to us about everything. There's nothing. In fact, the one time my daughter was 12, my youngest daughter was 12 years old, and she kept on coming to me to talk to me about issues. And the one time we were in the bedroom, and Mandy came in, and she said, because the door was closed, and Mandy came into the bedroom, and she said, Mom, I'm talking to Dad, and closed the door in Mandy's face. And Mandy was upset. She said, why she won't talk to us? Babe, she's just connecting to me at this stage. She will revert back to you, which she does. But there's no shouting. High emotional intelligence resolves conflict 8% faster. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. That's a good scripture, eh? Parents modeling calm responses to stress. The challenge. Modern pressures are real, but God's word is greater. Healthy families are built through intentional spiritual habits. The radical approach is a Christ-centered roadmap. This week, choose one radical area to strengthen: relationship, attitude, discipline, being intentional, communication, action, and love. Think about any of those areas that you can improve on. We've just spoken about some of those areas: relationship, attitude, discipline, being intentional, communication, action, and love. What area can you strengthen this week? Set a daily 10-minute family devotional time, maybe. Each day by naming 3 things you're grateful for. The wise woman builds her house, Proverbs 14, verse 1. Love, we're nearly at the end. Love is patient, love is kind. We have the tendency to be unkind when we are impatient. Isn't that true? Not envious and does not boast. Envy causes me to become critical and to hold a grudge. Boasting focuses on me, love focuses on the other. That's why I pray for my wife and daughters every day. Why? Because you cannot pray for someone you're angry with. So if I pray, Lord, I pray for Mandy. No, I'm not going to pray for Mandy. There's something there. So now, in the early years of our marriage, I would get very, very upset when Mandy would leave her phone at home. I would get extremely upset. I couldn't wait until she came home so I could give her it in the neck, because she's so irresponsible, leaving her phone at home, until the Lord spoke to me the one day and said, that behavior is ungodly, you need to stop it. So what happened? The next time she left her phone at home, I took the phone and threw the gate. No. I took the phone and I went to the shop and bought a chocolate, drove to the school, dropped the phone and the chocolate off for her. And guess what happened? Yeah, thank you. Well done. Yeah. That chocolate nearly never made it, but it did, eh? So it shows you no. So I took the chocolate and the phone and I dropped it off at school. It broke it for me. I never bothered about it again. Even when she she still sometimes leaves her phone at home. If I've got the capacity, because we've only got one car, so she normally takes it. But if I've got the capacity, if I've got the car, I will take her phone to school. The one time she left her lunch at home. Like, tough luck on you. Ooh, this is nice. I saw me eat it. No. I take her lunch to work for her. Because that's what love does. It's not arrogant or rude. You don't think that I'm better than you. It doesn't insist on its own way. It's willing to compromise. So look at this. John 15 verse 13 says, greater love has no man than this, but to lay his life down for his friend. So that love is the word love, is agape. There's 4 types of love. Phileo love, which is friendship love. Storge, which is family love. Eros, which is erotic love. And agape. All the other 3, the 3 first ones are only revolutionized by agape love. But agape love is the love that we want. It's a sacrificial love. It does for people even if they don't do for me. But it goes further. It says he lays down his life. Now that word life is the Greek word suke, which means soul. Soul is made up of mind, will, emotions. So it's saying you lay down your mind, your will, emotions. Your mind is what you think. Your will is what you want. Your emotions, what you feel. So here's what it's saying. Greater love has no person in this, but to lay down what you feel, what you think, and what you want for each other. That's what love does. Laying that down. I don't always have to win the argument. I very rarely do. But I don't always have to be right. You say the only time I was wrong is when I thought I was wrong. No. Is willing to hear the other person's ideas and opinions. There's 4 freedoms in any relationship, 4 freedoms. The freedom to think what you think without being told what you think. Say what you say without being told what you say. Feel what you feel without being told what you feel. And go where you go without being told where to go. Those are 4 freedoms in healthy relationships. Anytime one of those freedoms are taken away, your relationship will be broken down. If you try and control those things where people can't share their own opinion, they can't tell you how they feel, it's problematic. You can tell them where they can go, can't go, who they can see, can't see. They're not allowed to leave the house if you're not there. They're not allowed to watch TV if you're not there. That's stuff. It's control, it's manipulation. Unhealthy.